The footage in this film, in both films, but certainly in this film, is just astounding. It's just amazing what you've captured here. Follows, I guess, in a tradition, dating back to the Vietnam War of real raw footage coming into our homes. And I'm struck, with the fact that people can find out so much about what's going on, and with the fact that the events that are detailed in the film are somewhat not news, because it's detailing something that happened in 2023. Here we are in 2025. What is the benefit as a filmmaker of having some time and perspective on the events to put the footage together in a long-form documentary? And what is the benefit for us as an audience in being able to understand the story with some background, I guess?
It's a great question, because that was always something I was going through while I was a journalist, an investigative journalist, a news journalist, and that's my background. That's where I'm coming from into filmmaking. So I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move from journalism to filmmaking, because films give you much deeper understanding of the topic you're talking about, the much closer look at the motivation, at the feelings, at the meanings of people who you're spending time with and whose stories you are telling. And also, I guess that's a thing with the modern journalism. Its reputation, its impact is undermined by a lot of political statements that are happening.
Yes.
I'm going to be diplomatic here.
Yes. So, we're all going to tap dance, yes, as best we can. Yes.
That's journalist talking in me again.
Yeah.
I will be very politically diplomatic always. And that's helpful when you are talking about topics like human rights, when you're talking about very delicate themes, as always, when you are looking at the war. The reputation of journalism was undermined by as much as some of the democratic countries and the democratic governments, as well as totalitarian, authoritarian regimes all across the world. Mm-hmm. And so I am frustratingly find myself at a place where I just don't see that the journalism I did makes the impact that I was expecting. Mm-hmm. And that's where filmmaking comes into place. That everything I know about Vietnam War, everything I know about Second World War, everything I know about a lot of important issues and events in the world is coming from literature and cinema. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to be able to talk with that medium. And for 20 days is a good example of the film that in the beginning was approached as shooting news, but then sort of build itself up into being a film.
Oh, that's interesting.
And for 2,000 meters to Andriivka, on the contrary, it was conceived as a film from the very beginning. I was already looking at it from the very beginning, from the perspective how to make a film out of this story.
I know you said you came to documentary filmmaking because you were feeling inherently frustrated by what you could or couldn't do through journalism because of the outlets and the perception of it being, somehow slanted one way or the other. I started as a documentary filmmaker with not having gone through film school and sort of learned it on the go. I guess you have won the Pulitzer and the Academy Award and the BAFTA and about 20 other awards. But I guess, how did you move into documentary filmmaking? What was that? Was it sort of on the road as you went? Was it taking your photographic skills and applying them to the moment? Or
I think it feels like learning additional language. So as you move forward as a storyteller, I actually all started with the literature. I was a novelist, so I was writing both fiction and non-fiction. And then I moved into photography. Then I moved into being a journalist and a videographer, then DP, and then eventually I became a film director. You see, that journey is more like developing new skills, learning new language, because you are inevitably moving into space when you feel that the language you know is not enough to tell the story you want to tell. And that goes back again to journalism, the length of the time that the journalistic story can live in this madness that is the media space right now, and this chaos of news and stories. The survival rate of news stories is much lower. And if you want something to stay in history, if you want something to have a persistent impact, then you got to go with a different language. You're going to go with a film language. And that was another motivation, I guess. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's great. It was a sort of an evolution, as you say.
It is an evolution. But again, some stories until now, I can see that I can tell only with literature. While I'm shooting documentaries, I can see how I should keep writing the novels, but also I should keep writing nonfiction.
Yes, and it's the time you have with your audience. What someone is going to learn from the 5 minutes that they have on a podcast or I shouldn't downgrade podcasts, but
that's why the podcast is actually a more interesting and deeper form too.
Yeah.
Right, but a social media post or a quick hit or that 5 minutes on the evening news, as opposed to the 90 minutes more or less that they're going to give to you and the story that you're telling in a film. But in some cases, I need days of time with my audience to tell this story, and literature may be the only form, that it is appropriate.
So, and then there is this some kind of a feeling of duty as well. Being a documentary filmmaker, I also feel very strongly, especially during this Russian invasion in Ukraine, I feel that I do have a certain civil duty, if I can say that, but not to defend a Ukrainian perspective, but just to make sure that things that can be later twisted, misunderstood, misinterpreted are recorded and stay there and survive there. I'll give an example. A week before the final Oscars ceremony, 2 years ago, we are already nominated. Russia rolls out a scripted film that is called 2022 Mariupol.
Oh, wow.
And if you are in Russia, if you Google 20 days in Mariupol, you get their scripted version. So what they did is as soon as they occupied the city, they have sent crews to film on the location, and they did quite a high-value production, a scripted film, mini-series. That's the reality. That's the reality that 120 million Russians are seeing about what happened in Mariupol. Wow. Imagine that 20 days in Mariupol doesn't exist. It just exists in the form of news and headlines put against high value production film. That would be, human brain doesn't really know the difference.
Of course.
Between fiction and non-fiction. We as humans just live in these constant stories that we're telling to each other, telling to ourselves. And I guess for that millions of neurons that are in just this box, in this dark box of our heads that are floating there and getting the signals from outside, it doesn't really matter if it's fiction or not. It's just when you're watching documentary and then you're realizing that you're watching documentary, it even hits you harder. But in general, for the most of the audience, the memory and the feeling will always be there. So their film, their fiction film would have been the only version of the story
they would see, right?
That there is.
So it's the power of propaganda, absolutely.
I think documentary does make, when people realize that they are watching something real, not scripted, when you manage to engage them in the story, and then they realize that they're watching, but this is all real. It makes even more. That's 2,000 meters to Andriivka. Frequently from the audiences, I get this reflection that first they thought they're watching like a computer game.
A video game. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or Saving Private Ryan opening.
Right.
And then they tell me, but then I realized this is all real. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Job.
I wanted to pull them in the story, and then the documentary side hits people even stronger.